Welcome back to another soul filled episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, the podcast where we dive deep into the human experience and uncover what it really takes to thrive even when life gets messy. I'm your host, Avik, and today's guest is the ultimate example of grit, humor, and hustle. So please welcome Kira Hartley Klinger. So, welcome to the show, Kira.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me.
Amazing. So, before we delve deep into the discussion today, I'll quickly love to introduce you with all the listeners. Dear listeners, Kira is not just a successful internet shop owner with over 2 decades of entrepreneurial fire, but she is also a storyteller, an author of two unforgettable books, a self taught reseller, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a farmhouse renovator, a transit bus flipper, and oh yeah, she goes to a lot of auctions. Yes, yeah. So, but behind all those hats, she wears a powerful truth. So she has walked through real fire, like from chronic health struggles to anxiety and depressions. She battled it all and still managed to build a wildly creative life full of momentum and meaning. As she puts it, a body in motion stays in motion, and her mindset is unshakable, fierce, purpose driven. Yeah. So, dear listeners, buckle up because today's conversation is all about the power of mindset, motion, and refusing to sit still when life says slow down. So, welcome to the show again.
Thank you, indeed. That summed it up pretty well.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So, so, so you have said that your drive to keep moving forward, like mentally, physically, I mean, has been a lifeline. So, uh, when everything feels heavy or maybe overwhelming, so what's the first mental shift you uh, make to get back in motion? What do you have to say?
So, as we speak, I am getting ready to, I will be flying out of Ohio today to go into Boston. My dad has been battling cancer, so I try to go when I
Mhm.
can. But when you're juggling as many things as I try to juggle, sometimes it's hard. You look at this gigantic list. I have 3 days short notice that I'm going to get on an airplane, and I've got this gigantic list. I want to vacuum the house. I'm going to give the dogs a
Mhm.
bath. I should really work on listings in my shop. I have to make sure I get things shipped out. I have this
Yeah.
this book that I'm working on. It's just this mental list. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning,
Mhm.
and so, 2 days ago, I looked around and I said to myself, "I'm really not gonna get anything done on this list that really makes me feel like I have made a difference before I go on this trip." So, what I really need is I need a mental health day. I need some time to reset my sanity, to reset my clock. And for me, we live on a 5-acre farm. It's a hobby farm. We have lots of animals. And so
Mm.
for me, going out in the garden is what does it for me. Being out there, sometimes just listening to the birds, sometimes I put on music. So, I didn't take the whole day because I'm far too obsessive to take an entire day, but I did take 4 hours and I worked in the garden
Okay.
and I did do something that I would notice that got done when I was done. And I did things like I took watermelon to the ducks and to the horses and watched them eat watermelon. I mean, just mind erasing things, a
Mm.
sanity check. Um, so yeah, and then I just got back to business. What do I need to shut down for 2 weeks? And now I'm trying to figure out what do I need to take with me so that I can still keep going because I have a hard time shutting everything down.
Hmm. Understood. So, okay, if I have to say this way, like, how has that same mindset helped you navigate uh not just the personal health, but also the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur?
So, I mean, I've wanted to be a writer for as long as I can remember. It's just what I always wanted to do. I found myself in my early years
Mm,
in an unhappy marriage, raising children
okay.
and not a lot of money. And I still tried to write. I still pushed. My kids were very busy in activities.
Mm,
They had school. They delivered
mm,
paper newspapers for 4 years. So we had a very busy life. But I would get up before them to dedicate that time. And so it comes down to, if you really want something, the only
mm,
person who can take the steps towards that is yourself.
mm,
Um, so I continued to work on that. It wasn't until after I got divorced and I was
mm,
raising my last child by myself that I started to realize I need to make more money. So that's when I got started in resale on the side to try to see whether or not I could buy and sell things to make money. And
mm,
it worked. And so I spent a lot of late nights, even with even after my kids were grown and even after my stores were established and I had written the 2 books, I was still writing at 4:30 in the morning
mm,
because if I didn't set aside dedicated time for the
mm.
things that I want, life gets in the way. And so that was
Yeah,
in the morning, my mind is clear, the house is
mm,
quiet, and I can get it done.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really powerful. I mean, I think that a lot of our listeners can relate to this feeling of needing to move even when your body and the world says, "Ah, pause it right now."
Yes.
Uh, I mean, it's like we have to um, trick our fear into motion sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Because there are definitely days where I get up and it's like,
Mm,
oh, geez, I can't face this day. The list is too long. Or,
mhm,
I don't feel well. I'm a person that suffers from chronic migraines and I've had a lot of health issues over the
mm,
years that has really tried to slow me down. Um, But I have discovered over the years that if I get up and I keep moving, that a
mm,
lot of that pain can be managed. And that when I am sitting still or trying to sleep longer or going back to
mm,
bed, that it actually makes me feel worse, not only physically, but it makes me feel worse mentally. So I
mm.
really try to keep moving. And I drive my husband crazy because he is more inclined to want to relax than I am. And
Okay.
there's always projects to be done, and I'm constantly reminding him, a body in motion stays in motion, so I really kind of feel like he's tired of hearing that, but, I have to live by it. There's still a lot of things that I wanna get done in this life,
Mm,
and if I don't do it, who's gonna do it for me?
exactly. Wow. So, also so you built your first business while raising kids, and
Yeah.
your second one from a random realization about the vintage fabric. So, that's some serious resourcefulness, I would say. So, did you ever wrestle with imposter syndrome, like while building this ventures from scratch?
Um, it kinda happened out of necessity, and
Mm,
I was always looking when I was buying and selling.
mm,
We couldn't just look things up on the internet at that time to see we didn't have it on our phone yet. So it was a gut feeling. Oh, that might be worth money. But I didn't have a lot of money to work with. So I was buying things that nobody else wanted. And that's kind of how fabric started because I came into an estate situation where the fabric was selling really, really cheap and I was curious. So I took some home. I didn't know anything about fabric. This was 20 years ago.
yeah.
But I learned, and I started to
Mm,
build an inventory and I started to get the customers. And that fabric shop ended up getting moved over to Etsy and I started getting a lot of followers and I started getting a lot of customers, a lot of repeat customers. And I started to write the stories on my Etsy pages
mm,
about where the fabric came from, or maybe a funny story about the auctioneers or the competition. There was always something to talk about from the sale that it came from. And the customers really started to like reading those stories. And so it was the
okay.
customers that pushed me, you should really write a book. And this was a full circle moment because I hadn't written
Mm,
anything in over 20 years. I had tried to write for more than 10 years, I had tried to write books and tried to sell books, and I just did
Mm.
not have any success. I sold a magazine article, that was it. So this was a
Okay.
big full circle moment. I'm like, okay, now somebody's actually telling me, hey, write this book. And
Sure.
once upon a time, somebody told me, write what you know. And so
Mm.
all of a sudden, those words came back into play. And I was like, oh, maybe I do have something to share. And so, writing these books then turned into doing speaking engagements with quilting guilds, and it turned into doing podcasts, and it turned into, I got an email from a TV producer one day. How do you feel about reality TV? And I don't know where that's going. But sometimes I sit back and I look from where I started and
Mm.
to where I am. And,
Yep.
I'm not rich and famous or anything, but I'm doing what I always wanted to do. And there's a tremendous amount of peace in that.
Exactly. Very truly said, yes. And like when those doubts came up, how did you talk yourself out of them? I mean, or through them?
I just sometimes it's really hard, and I really strive hard in my shops to maintain like a 5-star rating. I want my customers to be happy. And so, especially in my fabric shop, since I started from nothing there, I there have been times where I have been challenged by customers about whether or not, well, do you really know what you're talking about? And sometimes I have to take a step back and it's like, oh gosh, do I? And so then I have to give myself that reassurance that, I've been on this path for a long time. I've done my homework, I've done my research, and you know what? Yeah, I do know what I'm talking about.
Mm.
So I don't know. I have a lot of talks with myself. The books were really hard to put out there because I self-published them, and so I really wasn't sure the kind of response that I was going to get. And
Mm.
you kind of hold your breath for the reviews, and I would sell the most book at the quilting guilds, and it
Mm.
was very reassuring to put myself in front of people that were like-minded. And so if you surround yourself with the right people and you have these types of conversations, I would read
Yeah.
these stories and they would be on board, and I would look out into the crowd and they would be laughing or they would be nodding their heads.
Mm.
I mean, nodding their head is like the best affirmation you can get. You're like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
You know? So I really think that you need to surround yourself with the
Mm.
right people, with the right audience. Now, if I was selling my fabric on eBay still, like where I
Mm.
started, it was a very scattered audience and it wasn't pulled together, and I wasn't getting the type of community that I really needed. And by going
Yeah.
to where my people are and having
Mm.
conversations with like-minded people, it really helps to boost you that, yeah, I'm going in the right direction. I'm providing a service that these
Mm.
people want. Um, I could have applied to be a speaker at anywhere, but how many people are really going to be interested in what I do? So I said,
Mm.
well, people that get together in groups at quilting guilds and they talk about making quilts and they make quilts and they buy fabric, these might be my people.
Mm.
So I had to, really get resourceful once I published the book. When you self-publish, the marketing is on you. And so you have to get creative in that, and you have to think about where am I going to be most effective, and where are my people and who are going to encourage me to keep going, and
Mm.
and even help me along the way. I've certainly learned a lot from the people that I surround myself with.
Understood. Yep. So like, uh, and also like you have openly shared the your battles with depression and anxiety. So how did entrepreneurship either complicate or heal some of those mental health challenges?
It's a little bit of up and down. Um,
Okay.
you know, Being in resale,
Mm.
the mess can
Yeah.
oftentimes be overwhelming because I am always bringing things home and I'm always processing things and
Yeah.
cleaning things and listing things, and I'm constantly trying to come up with better
Mm.
storage solutions. So sometimes walking into my space and seeing the mess
Mm.
um will really get my anxiety roaring, especially when I look at it and I'm like, okay, I don't have enough hours in my day, in my week, in my month
Mm.
to really get this all organized and still work and still make a living. So, um,
Yep.
trying to designate space helps a lot. At one point, I finally created my own office to where I could close the doors on it. Um, right now, I'm trying to, it's gotten so big that I am trying to create a new space in one of our buildings in the back in the farm. And so I would love to get to the point where I can leave the job in a different place, shut the door and come into the house and have the space be
Yeah.
home living. And I really think that's important. I really think it's important to have your place where you have your sanity and your peace and your quiet. And it could be one room. I have several rooms in this house that I love. Um, so that really weighs on the anxiety and the depression. But I have to remind myself where I came from and where I am and where I want to go. And it goes back to a body in motion stays in motion. A mind in motion also stays in motion. And if I just get up every day and I take another step forward, it really helps. Sitting, it's very, very easy to get sucked into a state of depression and a state of not wanting to do anything. And quite honestly, there have been moments where I found myself 2 hours into my day binge watching something on TV because I can't get myself motivated to get started, you know? So, then it's like, okay, well, you know what? You need to turn it off and you need to not put it on. You have to create rules. And if you truly want to succeed, you'll really try hard to follow these rules that you have for your sanity. And again, those mental health moments really matter. I have 3 grandchildren who live about 2 hours away, and I get them for a weekend about once a month, and sometimes it's really hard to look at this impossible to-do list and to feel overwhelmed, feel anxious, and to say, "I'm gonna set it aside for 3 days to be with my grandchildren." But I can tell you that my mood is completely reset after those 3 days, and during those 3 days, I'm not thinking about working. So there has to be happy places in the life. There has to be places that give you peace and give you joy and remind you what the good things are in life and that everything is not built around stress and pressure and to-do lists and anxiety. And, I think everybody has a happy place.
True. I agree. Totally agree. And also, like, you have raised kids, run businesses, written books, and still find time to host camp, like renovate the buses and dream up
Yes.
new projects. Yeah, I mean, what's your secret to keeping your mind and spirit energized?
I am one of those people that has
Uh-huh.
just more projects in my mind than I will
Okay.
ever get to. And I will complete a project, but 3 more will follow. We've been renovating this old farmhouse for 12 years, and it's about half done. Um,
Yeah.
but I constantly, when I go to auctions, I'm not just buying things to buy and sell, I'm also collecting things for the house. We have stripped out all of the moldings and doors and hardware and things like that from an old hotel that they were tearing down to put into our house. So those are out in the barn. And, I mean, I have a clawfoot bathtub sitting in the middle of my house that eventually will go upstairs for the new bathroom. So I always have a project and I'm always planning. Camp is just something we do every year. My husband has 5 grandkids. I have 3, and we don't see them that often during the year. They don't live
Yeah.
right around the corner. So we started having camp on the farm. I think it's been 11 or 12 years now. And they start coming when they're 2 years old, and we've got a big pond with a a boat in the middle of the pond that has a water slide, and they can fish. And yes, I took an old bus and I kind of painted it like the mystery machine on Scooby-Doo and put flowered curtains in it. And I'm a very crafty person. I can upholster, I can quilt, I can sew, I do woodworking, I do carpentry, I do drywall. I've learned all these things over the years, one, out of need because I was too broke to hire somebody, but also because I really, really enjoyed it. And, I've got this creative energy that I need to let out. And, the books are great at letting out the creative energy, but if I'm not constantly doing something with my mind and my hands, that doesn't help with the depression and anxiety either. I'm getting ready to go to, like I said, to Boston for 2 weeks to be with my family, and my stores will be closed. I won't have any of my projects I can work on. I can only take so many things on on the airplane, to work on. I have another podcast
Okay.
interview while I'm gone, but I'm like, "What am I gonna do while I'm gone?" You know? Oh, but what usually ends up happening is I get on my phone
uh,
and I shop for things that I don't need. I'm so bored. Um,
um,
but anyway, a friend of mine and I, we're in the process of publishing a children's book. And it is
oh,
the first in a series that is going to
mm,
talk about the adventures at camp, and it's told by the bus, that I read in.
okay.
So,
Hmm.
you know, we're currently working with the formatter and the person who's putting the book together for us. So I have that to
Hmm.
work on. And I have a library guild author luncheon coming up in August, and we also have some children's book luncheons coming up. So it's like, okay, I can be writing letters to other libraries about the
Hmm.
children's book rather than shopping for another pair of shoes that I
Hmm.
don't need. But I have to be doing something all the time, and that helps with my sanity too, and my anxiety and my stress is feeling productive
Hmm.
and looking at what I've accomplished, and, it's satisfying.
Perfect. And that actually keep you up and running. So that's a great part. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Ooh, and you're such a force. And then uh,
I'm busy. Yeah,
yeah,
but,
exactly. Yeah.
I gotta stay in motion, like I said. I'm 57 and I want 30 more years, so we'll see.
uh, exactly. Obviously. That's, I mean, lovely. I mean, this conversation actually reminds us that resilience is not about kind of never breaking down. It's all about choosing to rebuild again and again with curiosity, courage, little creative flair. So it's all. And so, for everyone who is listening, I want to mention that whether you are navigating health challenges, mental fatigue, or maybe just feeling stuck, uh, let this be your sign that your life can still surprise you. The next chapter might just
Yes.
be a kind of fabric auction away, and maybe a dream, new dream you haven't dared to write yet. So, keep that body in motion, keep that mind tuned for the growth, and also remember that the mindset is everything. So,
Yes.
Kira, if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the best medium?
So the name of my shop on Etsy is DodOddity, DodOddity. And that's also my Instagram handle. And I do post videos on Instagram from time to time about fabric and about my adventures and whatnot.
Mm.
There are little snips of stories on my Etsy
Okay.
pages. You can buy my book on Etsy. The book is Fabric Wars, and the second one is Fabric Wars and More. They're available on Amazon, Etsy. I can sign the copies of the book if you go there.
Mm.
But the stories, yes, are all about my auction adventures. There is a tremendous amount of humor. There's also a lot of faith building. And there's a lot about just me and my journey. Everything kind of gets interwoven into these
Mm.
stories. It is not just about fabric, it's about life.
Exactly. That's lovely. Great. So, dear listeners, I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easier reference. And with this hope, until next time, this is your host Avik signing off from Healthy Man Healthy Life. Stay curious, stay kind, and most of all, stay in motion. So, thank you so much.
Thank you for